I guess we're not getting the prequel. Anyway, hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is my recap review and rant for the 14th episode of the final season of The 100, otherwise titled Blood Giant. I will say it right now, this video has spoilers, so getting that out of the way, the title is obviously referring to the Red Sun, but like, is it also supposed to be Bellamy at the end? Cause just look at him. But anyway, wow, Jason wasn't lying when he said that this would be the most talked about episode of the season. And actually, speaking of spoilers, I had the episode spoiled before I watched it because I watched it on the CW app. I went on Twitter and saw that Jason said not to read his next post if you hadn't seen the episode, so I didn't. But then the 100's official account decided to post Jason's statement on all of their social medias. The CW knows that they get more viewers from the app, and there are people that wait until it's on Netflix, so that was extremely stupid for them to do. But like I was saying, the episode has sure caused a lot of controversy. I don't think it's been this bad since Clexa died, but I feel like other than the last scene, it was one of the best episodes, so I'm not sure how to feel about it. The plot of the episode was that Clarke and the disciples were back in Sanctum where they took control from Shade, but as they went to search for the key, the Red Sun returned and Raven had to deal with her demons as she returned to the reactor and finally faced Nikki. So we are no longer jumping around planets, it was finally one storyline in Sanctum, and I'm really glad about that. We started off where we left off with Clarke arriving on Sanctum, and they realized that Malachi had taken over Russell, but immediately Bill was tired of Malachi's BS and took out his army with the Invisible Disciples. So there goes one of my predictions because there was zero conflict between them. And now it really makes no sense that the storyline went on for this long if it was so easy to defeat Malachi. Then Indra was taken hostage even though she's part of Clarke's crew, but Bill didn't care because she was Malachi's soldier. And now after like 10 episodes, everyone finally realized that Gaia has been missing the whole time since Clarke thought Maddie was with her, but Maddie's actually safe in the reactor. As if killing his army wasn't enough, now a disciple stabbed Malachi and now Bill decided to kneel or die, and he told Malachi that he wasn't his enemy, and if he left him alone, then Gabriel would fix him up. So once again, there was literally zero conflict between them. Down in the bunker, it turned out they really should have let Trey burn Jerry's son because the kid is a bigot, and he didn't want Maddie's boyfriend to pet Picasso because he's a cog. But once again, showing how much better the kids are, Maddie got them all to pet him together. However, Picasso was hungry, and this led them to realize that they're running out of food. Jerry still had hope that Murphy would help them, but Trey kept on being negative. Why is he even still here? And I loved how Maddie thought that they were going to die if Murphy is their only hope. Now Murphy thought that Bellamy was pretending to be a disciple, but no, he's actually brainwashed, and Clarke was running ahead of Bill because she wanted to get to Maddie. So Bill got mad and sent her by herself and took Murphy and Raven hostage. I really loved the scene where they congratulated themselves about how bad things got. I like Memori, but Mervyn kinda seemed good here. Actually, we got some pretty good Mervyn content this episode. Also, it turns out Bill is Obi-Wan Kenobi and he suddenly decided he wanted the high ground. So now for the Queen's big return. Unfortunately not Lexa, but instead, completely unexpectedly, Josephine Lightborn returned this episode. As Gabriel was treating Malachi's wounds and he asked him if Russell suffered, at this moment, Josie showed up due to the Red Sun, so Gabriel realized that the eclipse was back and he had to warn everyone. Also, Malachi was saying Indra would miss him if he died, and like, I know it's stupid, but I was kinda starting to ship them. I love how Murphy kept talking shit about Bellamy's clothes just like Clarke did last episode, but the next scene with Bill and Bellamy made no sense to me in this episode. Bill acknowledged that him and Bellamy are different than Duchette and the other disciples because they were not raised to fight for all mankind. And here Bellamy literally mentioned that he still cares about his friends, and he refers to them as his friends. He was never completely converted to the cause, he only believed in transcendence because of the vision he had, which was now confirmed to be real, so there goes people's theories that it's a simulation. But I'll get back to this later and why it makes no sense that this scene was here. And also, this proves Bill isn't as devoted to the cause as they think he is. Before they could finish talking, the sirens went off, warning them about the Red Sun, but Bill's dumbass refused to go back to Bardo because he thought it was the trick that Clarke was doing. The people in the reactor thought that they were safe, but then Knight and his army were trying to break in, and then it turned out that Nikki did free herself last episode, but waited until now to do anything. So the moment where she robbed the bank and took those people hostages kinda repeated itself, as Nikki now took Jerry hostage and was threatening to kill him, except that this time Hatch wasn't there to stop her. But using Jerry as a human shield made Mori realize that she should turn off the shield, and while the power was off, Maddie's boyfriend knocked Nikki out. But here we could see that she was not the cold-hearted killer that she seems to be. She didn't want to kill Jerry, and Hatch didn't have to be there to stop her, so there was still hope for her. And that's good because I don't want Diosa to be the only good prisoner. Then Gabriel arrived at the palace still having visions of Josie, and it turned out that Malachi's hideous throne was made out of her previous bodies. So at least it's not the children of Gabriel like I thought. He went to the lab where they killed Clarke last season and had a vision of the second Josie, but he was looking for the antitoxin. Then Jackson asked if Nate was okay, and how is Gabriel even supposed to know who that is? No one has ever called Miller Nate until this season. But Gabriel lied that Miller was okay. And I had forgotten that Miller was sent to Earth with Echo Crew, but that's because they barely even give him screen time. Gabriel only found a bit of antitoxin because Russell wasted the rest of it at the end of last season, so he asked Jackson to take it so that he could help him make more. However, it turned out Josie also wants Lexa to return because she told Gabriel he could fix the flame since it was designed by Becca, who also made the mind drives. But she told him to put it in his head, so then he will have his chance to be better by taking the test and saving humanity. I think the next scene was actually foreshadowing the end of the episode, because as Bill and the others were trying to go into the reactor, Clarke arrived with antitoxin, and Bill pointed out that she only got that to save Maddie, and she agreed that she would think of Maddie before anyone else. So this was the writers reminding us how much Maddie means to Clarke, and throughout the whole episode she referred to her as her daughter. She would do anything to save her daughter. She promised to give Bill the flame, so they blasted down the door, and Clarke and Maddie were finally reunited, along with Memori, but unfortunately Bill immediately asked for the key. Also, Raven felt PTSD from being back at the place where she killed Hatch, but she went off to try to bring back the power. I liked how Memori was the only one who actually seemed to want to know what happened to Bellamy. She gave him a hug and asked him what happened, but he left once the power returned. Then Maddie told Clarke it was a bad idea to give Bill the flame, and Clarke told her to never tell anyone about the sketchbook and her memories of the other commanders, once again foreshadowing the end, when people did find out about that. Meanwhile, Raven noticed some gas was leaking, so she went into the room where Hatch died, and the moment she walked in, I was expecting Nikki to show up and push her in and lock her in there, but when she did show up, she put a knife to Raven's throat. She was finally going to get her revenge, but Raven started admitting that she killed Hatch because she was a coward and Hatch was brave unlike her. So Nikki realized that Raven wanted to die, so she let her live because having to live with her guilt is a fate worse than death. Honestly, I kinda liked this ending for Nikki's story. All she wanted was revenge for her husband's death, but her letting Raven live once again shows that she's human and she's not the monster that they made her out to be, because she could relate to Raven's pain. I still wish she would have redeemed herself by sacrificing herself. And where exactly is her story supposed to go now? If by the end of the episode everyone else wasn't on Sanctum, is she going to join the disciples like Malachi, or is this the last time we ever see her? As she left, she looked back at Raven's friends, and it seemed like they thought that she killed Raven, so they rushed over and found Raven crying, and I really loved this scene where they all hugged and comforted her. We really got to see that they've become a family now after all they've been through. Then in the palace, we got both some of Indra's best and worst moments, as she started hallucinating her mom while the disciples were going insane and actually started killing each other. So much for all mankind. And after a while, Indra finally cut herself free and attacked the disciples. I really loved this scene. She was such a badass, and I like how Malachi helped her out by telling her where the invisible disciple was, but now Indra saw her mom kneeling before Shade-Heda, and I think Malachi realized what was going on. But now we see once again how everything came full circle for her when she was the one that was kneeling to save Maddie's life, like her mom did for her. Luckily, Jackson and Gabriel got there in time to give Indra the antitoxin, and they agreed that they wouldn't help Malachi. But for some reason, Indra decided to let him live again because she thought he was going to die anyway. I understand it's her honor and her traditions, but this is so stupid, especially because she literally was about to cut off his head, and then she did nothing. She's had so many chances to kill him already. First she was afraid of him because of her childhood, then she had to save Maddie so she kneeled before him. But now there was literally nothing stopping her from killing him. He was lying there tied up and bleeding out already. I like that he got to live this long because I like the character, and JR is giving an amazing performance, but this is character assassination for Indra. They are making her so weak when she should have killed Malachi. The only reason that they didn't have her kill him was so that the ending could happen. And this makes even less sense because then in the next scene she was threatening to kill Bill because she thought that he had Gaia. But Bellamy explained that they didn't know where she was, and Gabriel told Bill that he could fix the flame. He started restoring the data from the previous commanders, and Josie was telling him how proud she was, but then she told him to offer himself as the new Heda, and he realized that he was wrong, so he shot the flame. So you mean to tell me that Jason Rottenberg decided to kill both Lexa and Bellamy in the same episode? This was finally our chance to get Lexa back, and I could have been fine with Shilko Mudu playing her, as long as I got a mind space battle between her and Malachi. But instead Gabriel literally killed her again. Bellamy tried to protect Bill from Gabriel, and then Clarke killed Duchette because he was going to attack Gabriel. And then once again we saw that although Bellamy believes in transcendence, he hasn't been completely brainwashed. He literally jumped down and cried over Duchette's death. He loved this man. After Ducette died, Raven was trying to get them back with Echo Crew, but she didn't know where to go, and it turns out Bill sent them to the planet that was offline. Clarke took Bill hostage and forced him to enter the code, and everyone went in, but she told Bellamy that he was staying behind because he's not the Bellamy that she cares about. Even though she promised herself she wouldn't lose anyone else, she lost her Bellamy when he came back from the mountain. Unfortunately here, we saw that the only reason that Malachi was kept alive was so that he could give Maddie's sketchbook to Bellamy, and here we saw a Drine of Cali, and then one that I'm still confused about. Is it supposed supposed to be Lexa or Callie, because the hair kind of looks like Callie, but it looks like she's wearing Lexa's armor and her face paint, and we know that Callie was only Flamekeeper, not Commander, so why would she be wearing that? But the last dream Bellamy saw was of the anomaly opening up in Anaconda when Becca went into the white light, and he realized that Maddie is the key, so obviously Clarke wanted the book back. Bellamy said that he would keep Maddie safe, but Clarke didn't believe him, and then she killed him. So this was the most controversial moment that everyone has been talking about, and saying that it ruined the show forever, and that they pulled a Game of Thrones, although I don't agree with that part. So I want to make it clear, I never cared about Bellamy. I liked him more than Finn, but I was never a fan of him. My favorite relationship for Clarke was always Clexa, so I could care less about Bellarke happening or not. It made sense for Clarke to kill him over the sketchbook, because as it was made clear throughout the episode, like I mentioned before when she brought the antitoxin, Clarke would do anything to save Maddie because she is her daughter. Clarke has always done whatever it takes to save her people, and after the 6 years they spent on Earth, Maddie is her people. She's known Maddie way longer than she's known anyone else. She literally only knew Bellamy for a few months, before the second Primfire. And yes, they did a bad job at showing this, which was the same problem that Becco had, because we never got enough flashbacks to show us how they bonded, and since we got to see the other characters together for 4 seasons, people think that their connection was stronger. But Maddie is still Clarke's daughter. Yes, she's adopted, but that doesn't erase the fact that Clarke thinks of her as her daughter, so of course she's going to put her first. What parent wouldn't do that? Bellamy said that he would keep Maddie safe, but how is Clarke supposed to trust him when he went behind her back and put Maddie in danger before? When he put the flame in her head in season 5. Everything that's happened is literally Bellamy's fault. Maddie was a little girl who wasn't ready to be commander. She hadn't been trained her whole life for this, unlike Clexa. If Bellamy wouldn't have put the flame in her head, then Maddie wouldn't have been too weak to stop Shadeheada from escaping and taking over her, and then taking over Russell. All of this led to the moment where Shadeheada gave Bellamy the sketchbook. Bellamy has always been someone that's a follower who let himself be controlled, so it makes sense that Clarke thought he was too far gone, because this isn't the first time this has happened. Remember in season 3 when he followed Pike? But the problem is that this time we literally saw multiple times throughout the episode that he wasn't actually loyal to the disciples. He wasn't brainwashed, and Clarke should have seen that too, because he obviously loved Doucette and felt awful when he died. Why did they show us that Bellamy still had love for his people if they wanted us to believe that he was brainwashed and there was no coming back from that? So my problem isn't with the fact that Bellamy died, but that the writing makes no sense. When I first saw the spoiler, I expected him to sacrifice himself to save them so that they could enter the anomaly or something, not to be shot by Clarke for a book that she didn't even pick up. There was no point for her to kill him. I understand why she shot him, but she didn't have to shoot him in the heart. She could have shot him in the leg or the arm, and in the end, he died for nothing since the book was left behind, and now Malachi will give it to the disciples. I know that in the show, she ran out of bullets, and that's why she had to leave the book behind, but that was all up to the writers. That didn't have to happen. It was plainly bad writing. And then there's the fact that he is the male lead. Usually I don't care about that, but the fact that he's the male lead means he's a very important character, and for someone that important to have such a meaningless death is completely wrong. And now we finally have a death that's worse than Lexa's death, because I always complained that she deserved a warrior's death, because yes, people die in war, but Lexa was literally in her castle when she died, and it was her own people who killed her. But at least Lexa died surrounded by the woman she loved. Meanwhile, Bellamy was literally killed by his best friend, and he didn't even get to say goodbye to Octavia. We got to see him talk to Raven and Echo and Clarke, his best friends and the woman that loved him, but we never got to see him talk to his sister, his responsibility in life. I didn't need him to have like a big perfect death where he's in a hospital and surrounded by everyone he loves, because that's unrealistic. That's why I have a problem with people that complain that in Arrow when Oliver died, Diggle and Felicity weren't by his side, because like people say, they're in a war, so not everyone's gonna have a perfect death scene, but at least give them a death scene that makes sense. Actually wrap up their character arcs before they die. Bellamy was barely even in this season. He was only around for 3 episodes where we barely got to see him or actually expand on his beliefs before he was killed off. Even characters that were only around for 1 episode got more of their character arcs wrapped up and got way better death scenes than Lexa and Bellamy, like Hatch this season, or Dev, or even that dad from season 1. So in the same episode, Jason Roddenberry decided to kill Lexa again and then kill Bellamy, and for what? Like I said, I could care less that he died, but for a character as big as this was an awful death. His death was completely pointless. But the other worst part for me is that this once again brings up the problem that I had after Etheria. I don't want it to be true, but I'm now convinced that Bill is supposed to be the true hero of the show, and Clarke and all of her characters have been the villains. The 100 is the story of the Cadigan family. That's why the prequel would have been about them. It was Callie that sent humanity down the wrong road once more, while Bill has always been the hero leading them towards the light. Clarke killing Bellamy because of her love for Maddie proves that Cadigan is right, and I hate this. I was hoping Lexa would return to prove Malachi wrong about
about love making her weak, but now I see that the flame was destroyed and she's not coming back because Malachi and Bill are right. The message of the show is that love makes us weak, and that's terrible. Earlier I was saying how they showed Nikki's humanity, and now I see that's supposed to be a bad thing. Her love for Hatch is what made her go down this road of revenge this season. Just like Clexa's love for Clarke made her weak and caused her death, now Clarke's love for Maddie made her kill Bellamy. It was Finn's love for Clarke that caused him to kill the Grounders. It was Echo's love for Bellamy that caused her to go on a rampage and try to commit genocide, and it made her kill those disciples. And even though Bellamy put everything in motion by putting the key in Maddie's head, it was Clarke's love for Abby that released Shayheda the second time, because that's what caused her to knock Russell out, and as a result Shayheda took over his body. And also, Russell and Gabriel's love for Josephine is what resulted in the creation of the Primes. So our characters have always been the bad guys, and I'm really expecting Clarke to die now. I really thought that would happen, but now I'm sure there's no other way they can end her story. The thing I hate the most is that overall I really enjoyed this episode. It was actually one of the best episodes of the season, but thanks to the end, all it's gonna be remembered for is Bellamy's death. This episode wasn't completely bad. It had some great moments, like the moments between Indra and Malachi, or getting to see Amori working by herself and saving people, or the moments between Raven and Nikki, and getting to see Sarah come back as Josephine. I don't even know what rating I would give this episode. I thought it has so many great moments. The ending completely ruins it because looking back at it, it has so many contradictions and moments that don't make sense thanks to that ending. And it's obviously due to the bad writing and how rushed it was. Well, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe for similar content. Leave your thoughts in the comments on the video, the episode, what you think about Bellamy's death, what you think the message of the show is, and if you agree or disagree with me. Thanks for watching, and may we meet again. Goodbye.